Happy Tuesday, everybody. My name is Andy Elliott. I'm a realtor here in Williamson County, Tennessee, and I am with my best bud, Rodney Wilds, who's a loan officer also in Williamson County, Tennessee. Rodney, how are you?
Fantastic. How are you doing?
Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
It was awesome. It was awesome. Family time, a little hunting time. It was a really good break.
I have to ask because what he does is, and I hope you don't mind me telling, Rodney goes south for duck hunting. Isn't that right?
That's right. A little
So
west,
did
a little south. Yeah,
did
Arkansas.
you? So did you have duck for Thanksgiving?
We didn't have any duck for Thanksgiving. We went ahead and stuck with a traditional bird. Uh, Dug meat is dark meat too, and I like white meat more than I do dark meat. But duck meat is pretty good. But usually I only eat duck meat like appetizers, poppers, and things like that.
Oh, okay. I never poppers. Wait a minute.
Yeah, it's like you cook them while you're grilling. It's some like a little appetizer.
Okay. I I don't know that I like dark. Well, turn it into a cooking show if we're not careful.
We won't go far.
Yeah. So my Thanksgiving was we're getting new shingles after that storm. We're getting new shingles on our entire complex. I live in a townhome, and we've got 105 units back here. And for Thanksgiving, I got a new roof, and all
Nice.
the people climbing all over the place and shingles in my yard, and
Yeah.
but they're gone. They're gone today, So it's good. Tell you what, this is I had this show queued up a couple of weeks ago when Brian filled in. He did a real good job. He's not Rodney, but he did a real good job. Um, and the topic of the show is a reckoning, a reset, not in my backyard. And because this is the reality check in terms of real estate. At least that's the approach I want to take. We like to just talk about the market as it really is. I mean, yes, I sell houses, and yes, Rodney sells loans, but I'm not going to come on here and say, God, this is the best time to buy, because it may or may not be for you. If it's the right time, your lender, frankly, will let you know, or your tax person or whoever. But we're not here to like pump sunshine up your skirt and say this is the best time to sell. Like you hear a lot of people promoting that stuff on Instagram, and I find that less than I don't like that approach. But if it's the right time for you, it is. But here's the reckoning, the reset, and not in my backyard. The reckoning is the first article that I want to touch on is more than half of the U.S. homes have lost value this year. That means in 2025. And in this particular article, we'll jump into it in a second. I'm going to do a secondary article also by Zillow. So I think I reversed that order on you, Rodney. The first one is going to be The Hill. The second one is going to be Zillow. But the important part of this is people are having to recalibrate. Home sellers are having to recalibrate is what's the truth about the market? What's actually going on? And I had a great conversation with some real good friends of the show, and Rodney and I personally, Wendy and Phil. I went to see the property they're working on. How they do the not fix and flip necessarily, but they take a property, fix it up, and then rent that out. And they just do an extraordinary job. It's really surprising. But the reason I was there is we have a new client coming on about wants to buy commercial properties and rental properties. And so the three of us, meaning Wendy and Phil and I, got to talking about rentals and what's going on. And that's an important conversation when you juxtapose it next to home sales and the value of the properties going down. Because what does that mean for renters? So I digress a little bit, but let me jump into the article here. And the first one's pretty short, so it'll go quick. Then we'll jump into the Zillow one. There we go. So the article again is more than half of U.S. homes lost value this year. Here's where it's been the worst. Spoiler alert, we could be involved with that. So for the first time since 2012, a majority of homes, it should work. Sorry about that. Glitch. For the first time since 2012, a majority of homes in the U.S. have depreciated. Just over half the homes in the U.S., 53% to be exact, have lost value over the past 12 months, according to a new report by Zillow. Of the major metro areas, Denver homes got hit the hardest. Now, I used to, full disclosure, I'm from Colorado. I lived out there, raised a family since 1975 in the Denver area, Colorado Springs, 60 miles south. So I'm a big Colorado fan. I'd move back if I could, but got roots here. 91%, get this, 91% of properties in cities have lost in the city of Denver have lost property values over the past year. That's extraordinary. Things aren't much better in Austin, where 89% of the homes have lost value. In Sacramento, California, the number is 88%. These are big numbers. And while Phoenix and Dallas are tied at 87%. The reason these are important, and we've heard these names before, these city names are not new to our show or for what's been going on since COVID, because these are the hot it places. Remember when Phoenix was going nuts? I mean, the value there skyrocketed. Denver skyrocketed. Austin skyrocketed, number one for the longest time. The trend holds true for dozens of cities, especially out west and across the south. Nearly every market in Florida saw most homes depreciate since 2024. Homes in the Northeast and the Midwest, meanwhile, are holding their value better. I can't figure that out. A much smaller percentage of homes in Wisconsin, Illinois, Ohio, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and New York lost value. I can't necessarily speak to New York, but the other, Wisconsin, Illinois, Ohio, and Massachusetts, I can't speak to Massachusetts and Connecticut, but a few of those states were low value anyway. So, Rodney, give me your first take on that first tranche of information. What do you think?
It's an alarming high number. That it's the number of houses that's seen. But I'm not surprised about the Midwest, because they weren't, and we're still dealing with that massive move from COVID, right? But nobody was really packing in the Midwest, right? That wasn't the cities that seen the crazy. So I'm not surprised to see the Midwest over big cities in California, Texas, and places like that. Those were, I don't want to say commuter cities, but people were flocking to bigger cities like that, and just destination cities everywhere.
Yeah. And the remote work changed the rules for a period of time, and that is a situation that's come back to roost. Or, I mean, have you heard? What do you guys do a lot of remote? I guess you don't have to answer that.
Yes. No. Yeah, we can. We do a ton of remote. Almost. It's almost. COVID changed the way you did things, honestly. And so, I'd say, pre-COVID, we had 50 people in the office, and now none of us go. So,
yeah. Now, for other companies, that may not be the case, where you need a lot of symbiosis and stuff. But yours is more of a numbers game and a relationship game. That's what.
Yeah,
that's what
and
it is.
We have mortgage people that have offices. It's just that our, some mortgage teams don't. So.
Yeah, no, and I tell you what, you would attract really good talent that way too. If you have that kind of flexibility. And real estate's the same way. You can. There's very, very few of us actually go into the office outside of a closing or two. So just to finish this article, and then I'm going to dip into the next one because it's got some kind of cool graphics. It said, despite the drops of the past year, the vast majority of homes have appreciated since the last time they changed hands, which is an important point. We'll get to that in a second. Hey, Ange, how are you, young lady from California? Good to see your name and your face pop up there. Despite the drops of the past year, the vast majority of homes have appreciated since the last time they changed hands. Only 6% of homes are worth less now than the last time they sold, which we're going to get into in a second. But in a few cities, especially where the big pandemic home buying boom, the larger share of homes would sell for less if they hit the market today. Little Rock, Arkansas, Austin, Cape Coral, Florida, and Northport, Florida, more than a tenth of homes are valued 5% or more lower than their last sale price. Now, the reason that I think that that's an important thing is, and you tell me where you stand on this, Rodney. For people that are trying to sell their house at the, what I call, again, I use this term almost every week, hot market hangover, where people have this expectation of selling their home for way more than perhaps it's worth because of they used to see it on COVID and people going for crazy dollars, which that's just the way it was. But nobody in this particular situation, what they're talking about, nobody's actually losing money. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. I mean, America's sitting so good. The majority of Americans are sitting so good with how much equity they have, and I think it's part of the reason they're pulling them off the market. It's like, well, we got plenty of equity. We're not hurting to give that up. We got a great interest rate. If I'm not getting what I want, then I'm, going to pull it off. You call it a hot market hangover, but at this point it would be a hot market disease because that hot market's been gone. Like the hangover is gone. If you're still thinking of the hot market, it's not a hangover anymore. You may have the hot market disease.
It's chronic.
Yeah. I mean, because forever it's been a few months. Like if you ask your realtor, what's the average time on the market for selling? And they say, well, it's about 60 or 70 days. That's what it is. Like, you know that your house is not going to sell, that's an average. So it's a good thing to look at anyway. So that's the hot, if you say that, you can't think really it's a hot market anymore.
And people are kind of they're learning the lesson. I'm gonna show you something. I'm gonna bump over one screen. Give me one. I want to check something here. Oh, good, we're there. Okay, good. Now we go back. Bing, got it. Mr. Technical here. So I've jumped over to this next one. It says home. This is the Zillow article. Home values decline spreads, but losses since the last sale are rare. And we were just talking about they're not actually losing money. But here's what I can tell you what happens behind the scenes. When somebody wants to sell a house, they start interviewing agents, usually 3 or 4. Sometimes people with that does a lot of volumes, and sometimes it's people that don't do a lot of volume. It just depends. But when they come over and the agent starts showing them comps, they're comping their house to what the value of the stuff that's actually selling. And in this market, because it's changing pretty quickly, you have to do comps with homes that have sold in the last 30 days, 60 days, maximum. Because if you go back more than that, you're looking at numbers that don't mean much anymore. You're using the wrong comparisons. But when you start, here's the trick. When you start making those comps, what you're doing is you're comparing size to size, location, and condition. That's what you're comparing, really, basically, those 3 things. When you come up with a number, if you carve it in stone, that seller, bless their heart, they're going to carve there. They're going to etch that in stone in their head, too. That's what all their calculations from that day forward, relative to moving costs and profit and all the rest of it, is going to go with that number. You have to prepare folks. Say, here's a good starting point. Be ready to shift because the market's changing. I'm just saying, you got to go in preaching flexibility. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Otherwise, you're going to start getting calls. How come my house didn't sell this weekend? So moving on to this. National home value appreciation is flattened, but that doesn't mean that home values aren't changing. That's a pretty heavy sentence right there. Home values aren't changing. People were saying, when are home prices going to come down? Could we be in that moment? I'll just ask you, Flade, do you think that that's happening right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think just like that article we just read about, with the delistings and all that, I think prices are coming down, but I think it's extremely moderate. I think it's, if it's 1 to 2%, 3%, something like that. Yes, I think they're moderating a little bit. If you go into I'll say this too, if you go into a hot market or an area that somebody wants to be, then
Mm-hmm.
all bets are off. Who knows what that's going to do?
Yeah, if some, you're right. The calculation changes dramatically if somebody finds their dream home, if that's what you're saying. If somebody
Or
is that
just
what you're
where it ends up being seven people's dream homes. You know,
right?
what
Yeah,
when they want to get in Creve Hall or a certain part of Green Hills or whatever or North Nashville, Germantown. When you get in there and it's the only house on the street for sale, or 3 blocks, and you want to be in that neighborhood, then you might be paying a premium there.
yeah. And that usually those are the houses where they've simply priced the property correctly based on the condition in the market. That's usually what happens. Terry DeSalms used to preach, if your house is in a little bit better condition for a little bit less money, it'll sell fast and first every time. And he kind of knows his business. So we know that all real estate is local, but more than that, all real estate is personal. That's absolutely true. Even in up local markets, submarkets, and individual homes can lose value. And in local down markets, some homes will hold their value better than others. That's also true. As of October 2025, 53% of homes have lost value over the past year as measured by their Zestimate. Not a big fan of Zestimate, but still, Zillow's a great data company. This share has climbed from only 16. Let me repeat that. That share has climbed from only 16% just a year ago. This is on the highest share of homes declining in value since April 2012. That's a heck of a signal when the housing crash was starting to bottom out. Where's our buddy? Where's Crash Bro? But anyway, so what I did is this particular chart shows Nashville, where it says the national average is 53%. In Nashville, it's 65% have lost value. I can't. You know what? That is hard. That's almost hard to believe.
It's per Zillow.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
65%
I
is a
mean,
lot.
if it's 1%, I mean,
God, it's just
I can see that.
it just amazes me. Just a couple more thoughts, and we'll move on. The loss of value over the past year has been most widespread in the West and the South, and I'm telling you, we're seeing it. Most major metros in these regions, and we were talking about. Yep, you betcha, Angie. I think that's super smart. Followed by Austin, it goes through the same thing we went through. Loss of value has been most widespread in the West and South. I'm getting kind of repeating. But I guess what the point about all of this is, it's time to start paying attention to what's going on. I think that what you're seeing is that we've talked about this before. Tell me what you think. Most of the properties that persist on the market through price cuts and the rest of it are those that have to move. Job change, relationship change, that kind of stuff. Would that be true, do you think?
I think so. I think we're still. I think one, you've got a couple things. I think you got a lot of Americans, or a lot of people that own
Mm-hmm.
homes that they have got a nice amount of equity in over the past several years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think when you have that, and you have a low interest rate, it's hard to get rid of it. It's hard to get rid of. So I think you have a lot more people with options saying, if I can sell it for this, I'll sell it. But if it doesn't sell, I'm not worried about it. I'm just going to pull it off the market, and I may try again in the spring. But what they're not wanting to do is back away from some of that equity that they've gained and so they're testing the market and then pulling them off. That's my best estimate of what's going on, because I just read a lot about whenever you gain that equity in your house like that, and then especially when the stock market may not be doing as good, so you may have lost some income on that side or some assets, you're going to hold on to your equity. So I think I think it's par for the course. I think it's what a lot of people think is going on, and why the delisting is because they have an option. If you have to sell, you're not delisting. You're lowering your price and going ahead and taking the bullet.
Yeah, there's a Zillow a few years ago started. It was really just a sales technique, but what they called it was a make me move. And there's a lot of home sellers now that they've kind of adopted that as a theory. When you go, how do you feel about your price? They're just gonna have to make me move.
Yeah.
Kind of gives you a good reason to keep the price high and not budge. Because they're not making me move. And now I hope this is okay with Ange. I'll change it if it's not. But if we look into East Tennessee, let's just say the East Tennessee area. Is like the Chattanooga area, for example, for no particular reason. It happens to be 60%. It's lower in terms of losing value than Nashville. So that means they're not going to be quite as negotiable, that sort of a thing. So I guess I want to use something on my next. I'm not going to do it yet. I'm going to show you. I think I've done this every week, but I'm not tired of it yet because it's such an example. And I'm going to show you something. Hang on. Here it is. So I've told you before that I get notifications of all the price cuts of what's going on. This is what's going on locally. And you can see that today there's 7 properties that got price cuts. Now this is just 3 cities: Brentwood, Franklin, Nolensville. It's not all Williamson County. And if you look at December 1st, go all the way down, there's 13, I think it's, if you count it, it's pretty close to 12 or 13 price cuts that have taken place. And the reason I bring that up is that's part and parcel to what's happening to the market. That's why those prices are going down, because those people that are doing the price cuts are, what I'm telling you is, they're pretty persistent. They want to sell enough that they'll start pricing and getting lower and take that hit. So I don't know that I've made this very clear. I usually do a better job of clearing things up. But what the conversation I'm trying to have is, change is in the air. Now, it's also the beginning of December, so things are slower. I mean, is that true in the lending business as well?
Yes, our current applications are down across the board. It's with maybe even with the spike in interest rates. But yeah, I think we're heading for a kind of a slower winter, and see how the spring comes.
And I think Ange has a really good point, to wait and see. I'm not telling anybody, if you're ready and you find your dream home and you got to move, buy your home, plant your flag. Don't let anything hold you back from that. However, if somebody's pondering their moves, to wait and see what happens next spring, which is 28 days away, isn't a bad plan to kind of see, because who knows what's going to happen. I would hazard a guess that most properties will probably go up in price a little bit in the spring. That would be my guess. Wouldn't you? I mean, that's pretty consistent year to year, wouldn't you say, Rodney?
It is, but it's like right now. Are you going to list your home against all these other ones at a higher?
Yeah.
If we still have a bunch on the market, I don't know. I don't know if that'll happen.
I don't either.
It wouldn't make much sense to come on the market higher than everybody else in the spring.
I would tell you this though, for anybody that's getting this, if they're looking at properties and kind of scrutinizing stuff, I'm going to tell you, if you're looking at a property, it's been on the market 20, 30, 40, 50 days, that's negotiable. Even if somebody, even if they cut it over the weekend, you can still, I'm telling you, I'm telling you this. If they cut it over the week, yep, I think that I wouldn't want it to either. If they cut a price over the weekend, which they're going to do, price cuts typically come on Fridays and Mondays. That's just the way it usually happens. But if they cut the price yesterday and you saw a house that you liked, go ahead and offer less than what they've got listed, because if it's 50 days, they're negotiable. I'm telling you. I don't want to cross any move. Are we good, Rodney?
We're good.
You know where we're going next, everybody. It's time for Rodney. Oh, yeah.
All right, let's do this. This question comes. I can't hardly read the name there. But the question is, do I have time to improve my credit score by the time we need to buy home? I'm just going to be honest. My credit score is tanked outrageously. At 32, it's always ranged between 7 and 830. I'm in the high 500s right now. I guess what I did is I stopped paying the student loans. My plan is to pay them all off at once in February of 26. I'm paying $6K in credit card right now. This is why wife and I are saving for our home, and I have a rental on the side. Do I have enough time to recover the credit score to qualify for a home by fall of 27 and spring of 2028? I am worried I won't be above 700. All right. Well, let's talk about that for a second. One, I would say absolutely yes. You have plenty of time to fix your credit, possibly without even paying that stuff off if you do it correctly. However, paying it off will make it a lot faster for you. So the first thing I would say is, one, you said you're just going to pay it off at once. I kind of like what you're doing. I think, okay, without the information here, you're paying $6,000 in credit card right now, and I'm assuming that's your kind of your smallest debt, and then you're going to pay off the $20,000 of credit cards. So I like what you're doing, paying off the smallest, building a little momentum. That's a Dave Ramsey tactic that I think he uses to promote very well when you're paying off debt. If you have, say, 5 debts, one of them's 100 and the last one's 1,000, you start off paying the $100 one first, go to the next one, pay the next one off, and as you pay it off, you're building a little momentum, and it's tackling easiest ones first, and that's what's kind of giving you that momentum. So I like what he's doing there. Now, the thing that you also have to do is you do have to build good credit as we go along, starting right now. Like, as you're paying this stuff off, if you've got a credit card that's in there that maybe has some, you can pay down the balance, but you don't necessarily have to close it. So what you've got to do is really figure out a way while you're paying this stuff off that you're not closing every account. And the end goal is to get your score up, so you have to develop good credit. Now, that's not saying that you have to incur debt, okay, or accumulate debt, but you need to use your credit cards and things like that to show that you can pay back a mortgage, and that's what's going to build back your credit score. So, one, you just can't pay everything off. Okay, you've got to reestablish, pay everything on time. Don't be late on anything, and you should be fine. The money part, paying off the $20,000 and the $6,000, that's not chump change. So the only other piece of advice I give you here is make sure you're not, sticking all your money in there, keep you a little bit of money in case somebody misses a couple weeks work or something like that, and we don't get in this situation again, because your savings, you know, is not having no savings is what gets you into this situation where you end up not paying your bills and things like that. So establish a little savings account. It can grow later, but just try to get, as get the stuff paid off is probably your first and fastest thing that you're doing there. So I think you're on a great track to do it. You definitely can get your credit score up, and get that. The last thing I would say is that um, I would not care about a rental if I didn't have a primary, and that's
Hmm.
just me. You've got a rental on the side. I don't know much about that. Um, but if it were me, I'd be focusing on getting a primary. If getting rid of that rental helped me get a better primary, I would do it. If keeping that rental, gave me a little bit of cushion while I owned a primary, that's one thing. So just take a look at that, and then kind of go from there. But we can jump into the comments and see. But my thought is that you have plenty of time, and it seems like you're on a pretty good track. Um, let's see here. Contrary frown. Uh, Contact the servicer and see if they have a rehab program where the delinquent history is forgiven after a certain number of payments. I've seen programs from 9 to 12 months of payments. Uh, this is student loan stuff, calling and trying to get that. I've never seen anybody, you get dinged on those student. I've never seen anybody get them removed from lates. My husband defaulted on his loan some years ago and rehabbed it, paid on time for 9 months, and he was able to get on income-based repayment plan. Um, so yes, you can get back. They're just telling you how to get back in there. Um, if the default stays on your credit, it will be for 7 years. What you need to do if you work off payoff and have the negative report removed. If you go in there on your student loans and pay them, everything falls off pretty much in 7 years. But as you catch those student loans up, you don't need them to come off. You just need them to be caught up and reporting either paid off or uh, due. Current. Keep them current and not late. You don't
Hmm.
necessarily have
Hmm.
to have them paid off.
Hmm.
But as they start reporting current, that's what's going to help you. The 7 years is really nothing you need to think about right now.
Hmm.
Let's see, this is a good idea, but many lenders have said they won't or can't remove legally. You're never going to remove student loans. Then the negative history remains hurting credit, but showing a zero balance. That's good. Even if it's old, it's a zero balance. It's not reporting bad anymore, and that's what we want. Um, let's see here. Um, let's go down to adept grapefruit. No, not by paying a lump sum February 26th. You should have been making minimum payments. Your credit score will be affected for 7 years from now unless you get the delinquent payments somehow removed in your credit report. Adept grapefruit is not very adept in telling somebody actually what's going to happen. Of course, they should have been making their minimum payments. They didn't. We're past that. That sounds like somebody's mom or something right there. You should have been making payments. Of course they should, but they didn't. But it's not going to be affected for 7 years. Credit score is amazingly um, flexible. Like, it can rebound. It is the America's greatest second opportunity thing on the face of the planet. Like, you can
Hmm.
ruin your credit and then literally build it back up to perfect again, and then do it all over again if you want to.
Hmm.
Yeah, he says if you're
Huh.
defaulting on your student loans, I'm not sure any lender will give you more money than might not get paid back. If you have a default, it'll hinder you significantly, and you'll probably get a terrible rate even if you're already able to get a loan. Don't believe that dude. You're right. I mean, in a sense, they're right as far as it's ruining your score now. But um, it I have done hundreds of loans with people who's missed payments on student loans. Students, when they get out of school, they miss payments on student loans. That's happens a lot. People are getting started. Not everybody's parents bail them out. They can't make it. It's just part of the process. So it's not the biggest deal. You can recover from this student loan issue easily. And this person's asking how long you've been delinquent. Get out of the past, man. We're moving on from being delinquent. We know we're delinquent. We know we shouldn't have been delinquent. The thing about it is moving forward, it seems like he's got a good plan. And I'll say this too. Well, here's one more comment. With loan payoffs and continued good credit habits, you can likely boost your score to near or above 700 within 18 months. Combined with a solid down payment and stable income, lenders may still approve your mortgage. Keep monitoring your credit and consider credit counseling for personalized strategies. This gives me hope. I'll have money to pay them all off in February. And like I said, I would rather see, a few of these student loans out there, and say he has 6 left and they're $15 a piece payments, and whatever the balances are. I would rather him have, say, $10,000 in the bank and pay $10,000 down, and have, these very small payments left, just for the simple fact that he can always pay them off. Cash is kind of king to me, and cash will give you the flexibility of sleeping a little bit better at night, knowing if something happened, you can make your bills. So, like I said, I would have to see it and go through this whole situation, but they're on the right track. They're going to be able to do this credit score thing way before that 18 months. If he has some good stuff reporting, I'm thinking 6 or 7 months. And then you also need to think about, you're not going to necessarily need a 700 if he doesn't go conventional. Like if he gets it up to 660, 680, he's going to get, a really decent FHA score. That's going to be something. They're in a pretty good spot. I know it doesn't seem like it, but it seems like they're on the right track. And by the end of 2026, his credit should be really good, and hopefully their money situation is really good. So that's today's riff on the reality check on this credit. And I know it's not a crazy good topic, but improving your credit score is one of the number one things you can do before you go get a mortgage loan. That's why I want to take that. It's so important in today's market when it comes to your interest rate. So that's why I chose this topic, because it's extremely important for people to get the best rate they can get, and it's so much driven by a credit score nowadays, especially with conventional. It's imperative that you have, that you do get your credit as best you can. It's the fastest way to save money. So that's the riff.
Excellent. That was excellent. I mean, you really summed that up beautiful. And that's the way you start next year. I mean, the best way, you just said it, the last thing you said, the best way to save money is improve your credit score. That pretty much, that's the secret sauce right there. Thank you, Rodney. That was excellent. So, moving on, and we're starting to pull a little bit into that kind of pressurized time thing. So I'm going to do this next article pretty quick, and then I want to land on this last one, which is more local to us. It's you'll see what I'm talking about. It's talking about how people feel about higher density in already built neighborhoods. And in Nashville, it's quite the steamy topic. So steamy, that's wrong. It's a hot topic at any rate. But before we get there, I want to touch base on this next, which dovetails into what we were talking about earlier about home prices dropping a little bit. and here it is. More sellers are pulling properties off the market instead of simply lowering the prices. This is sort of a behind the scenes on what's actually going on. Remember that for when you see a listing that's reduced in price, there's probably one that has delisted altogether, like Rodney's been saying. And so after the frenzied home buying rush of the pandemic and years of a seller's market, the tide is finally starting to turn. That's because instead of dropping their home price in order to attract a buyer, a rising number of homeowners are choosing to yank their listings off the market altogether, according to the Washington Post. The article cited Realtor.com data that said nationwide delistings rose 52%. 52% in September compared with the year before. If sellers are trying to get out of their home, why are they lowering their prices instead? Why aren't they lowering their prices instead of completely delisting? What's the holdup? The delisting trend signals imbalance between buyers and sellers and could lead. Do we know how many more buyers there are, Rodney? Your favorite statistic? 500,000. Could lead to a deadlocked housing market while general inventory is up and price cuts are increasing. The growth of inventory is slowing, and the difference between the number of listings and delistings is narrowing. For every 100 newly listed homes nationally, previously listed homes were taken off. 28 previously listed homes were taken off the market. 28%, an increase from 16 in August of 2024. Maybe you're locked into payments that are relatively affordable for you. Senior economist at Realtor just told Money Watch, you would prefer to sell, but not at a price that you're not comfortable with. What's interesting about that, and this, I need you to chime in on this, and I touched on it earlier. They're delisting their property based on a number that's made up. Now, it can be based in research, meaning if you're doing comps, but if you do comps today and the market shifts tomorrow, you have to follow the market, right? I mean, isn't that right?
Yeah, I still just think it's like you've got a lot of pent up people, a lot of pent up demand that hasn't moved in years that probably would have moved if the market hasn't been the cycles it's been on. And then you've got the reason why is I think people are holding on to these rates, and it's like it says, it's almost like you can't afford to move. You can't afford to add a couple 100,000 to your mortgage. And you know what I'm saying? It's the house prices have went up so much, it's almost like you can't afford the one you're in anymore. So it's I see why. I mean, I really do.
That something you said just kind of clicked in my head, and I'm ashamed I hadn't thought about it before. If you can extract enough profit, given X number of dollars off the sale of a house, you can tolerate a 6% mortgage or 5.75 for a little longer period of time until you could refinance or something, I guess. Is that what you're saying? That you get a little extra cash to tide you over?
It's like say if you're sitting in the middle of Arrington right now and you want to sell your house, I mean you're gonna sell it, but where you're gonna buy, everything's so expensive. Like it's like although yours went up, everybody else's did too. If you
the
move,
magic of the market,
it's like you're losing some of that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. It's kind of weird, but I don't know. It's kind of strange.
Well, and that puts us into the argument of because we're in a clearly changing market, and of confusion. People are confused by the market. It's hard to make a solid decision when you're confused. I mean, the market, people just kind of stop deciding when that happens. Just a couple of other thoughts, and we'll move off this topic. Sellers may also expect to sell their home at the same high price they purchased it for. We've gone that ad nauseum, but the market's cooling off. 20% of home listings had price reductions, up 1.6. Bored with that. It's clear that a rising number of sellers would rather delist than cut prices. I understand, but the thing is that's going to prevent buyers and sellers from getting closer together is if all the sellers who maybe could be or should be lowering their prices to meet the demand where it is are instead taking their homes off the market altogether. We'll button it up this way. The narrowing difference between the number of delistings and listings is a housing market move that should raise flags for both prospective buyers and sellers, as it could affect timelines for listing and purchasing. But there are ways both buyers and sellers can navigate and even take advantage of the current housing market. If you're considering selling, it's time to manage expectations. Talked about that. And accept that you might not be able to sell your home at the high price you expected. Now, this comes from a Realtor.com article. So that's kind of my point, is that we're in the midst of change. We're in the midst of change, period. That's just, I would say get over it, but that's a little bit harsh. You just have to, it puts it gently when it says you have to accept it. And so there we are with that. Enough of that. Market's slowing down. People are delisting. Prices are going down a little bit. I suspect that things will change and probably reconstitute itself in the spring. That's my guess. That happens every year, right? Wait, didn't this year, I guess, but next year will be better. So let's finish up. Let's finish up with this topic, and I think the reason this has held my attention for quite a little while, this particular article, and the title is "The Escalating Standoff Between Homeowners, Rollin Horton, and Democracy." And this is an article that is specific to the Nashville area, but I think that without a doubt, this is going on across the country. And what it addresses is there is, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, Rodney, would you say that the lion's share of people want more affordability in housing? Would you say that that is a cry heard far and wide?
I'd say the ones without housing, you know, the people with housing is not crying about they want more density.
Yeah, but I mean, the affordability is the question. Do you think that affordability?
The affordability is for every single person that has a house or has bought a house, and it's tough to get into and tough to maintain a house. I mean, the affordability is tough for all Americans right now. I mean,
yep. And what this article addresses, and I'm not casting aspersions on any of the characters, because I thought that the author of this particular article, it's in the Nashville scene, they did a pretty good job, but they characterize it where I would probably classify myself on the other side of the room politically from where this person is. So, 601, whatever. But what this addresses is everybody's crying for affordability, and I would go as far as to say there's a lot of virtue signaling going on. People say that's what they want, but secretly, the reason for my thumbnail, not in my backyard. So here we go. So when scorned homeowners lined up behind the podium in the Metro County, again, this is in Nashville, but I think it's across the country as well, Chambers last week in a coordinated red outfits, every seasoned Metro watcher got comfortable. Some council members' efforts to add 2 new zoning categories, residential neighborhood and residential limited, to the city's code has become an animating force in Nashville politics in recent weeks, and the gallery was packed with organization opposition, which you can bet. The rewrite would not change a single parcel yet. The bill is largely seen as a preliminary step towards loosening city property laws that have locked up thousands of homes in the city's most desirable neighborhoods as exclusively single family. Let's think Belmead. Let's think, Green Hills. They have overlays up there. Matching clothing. I'm going to read quite a bit of this, so bear with me, but it's interesting. At least I thought. Matching clothing means business during any city public comment period, the open mic time for residents to address elected officials about legislation in 2-minute intervals. At a time when their predecessor was known for taking Red Bull inventory in his seat, current Vice Mayor Henderson last week got her buzzer ready. Speakers on both sides came and went. Some, you can imagine this, I kind of wish I would have seen it. Some quoted the Constitution. Some came with personal attacks. For almost 2 hours, democracy in action vacillated between reasoned arguments, grassroots passion, and adult tantrums. Phil's with us. Hi, Phil. Well, I gotta love this guy. Part of the problem is the population has exploded, but regulation and government move slowly, methodically, and that's right to some degree, but locally, developers have steamrolled the process. In go. Okay. The meeting's tensest moment occurred early when Green Hills resident Tom Gormley mistakenly tried to speak during a supporter's comments. Sir, this is the time for people speaking in support. Do we get a chance? He said. I mean, can you imagine the infighting going on? The city's citing the city's dire, and I'll come back to you, Phil, because I got to think through what you're saying. Citing the city's dire housing need, supporters see zoning flexibility as a crucial step towards increasing Nashville's housing supply, shut out of home ownership by the city's unaffordable housing market. Supporters embrace zoning reform as overdue response to population growth. Now, what do you have? What thoughts do you have on this, Rodney? Uh-oh, I've lost you. Can't hear you.
You there?
Thank you.
It's just the first thing that catches my eye is that if you're wearing red clothes, you mean business.
Okay. Okay. So the bill establishes 2 new zoning codes for building types that we currently don't have standards for in our code. We're talking about townhomes. We're talking about house courts and 3 and 4 unit plex houses. Do you know what house court? Have you ever heard of a house court before?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had.
Yes.
Go ahead.
It's like it's just like our zero lot lines, but they have community. They have community stuff. Community.
And I think that they're actually designed so that they're facing like the town. I'm going to call it the town square, but the community square. Isn't that correct?
Yes, there is some design elements to it, but it's meant for us. I mean, it's just designed with. I'm trying to think of the word they use, but it's basically community property.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, right. I get it. And that is new. And I think that there's one building we were talking about probably a year ago. There's actually one building in Nashville that like that, and it reminds me a little bit. And this is not making fun, but back when I was younger, there were a thing called communes. That's what they did, hippies and stuff. They did communes, and that's what it kind of reminds me of a little bit. So to press forward just a little bit, and I'm almost done. Throughout the hearing, supporters and opponents agreed on many major topics. They agree. This is pretty good, I thought. They agree that the housing market is expensive. They agree that the city has grown rapidly, straining public resources. They agree that currently expensive single-family neighborhoods like Sylvan Park and West Mead are great for those who live there. They disagree on whether these areas are ready to absorb more people, which is the whole point, I think, to this, what got my interest in this article. And I thought this was kind of, can you help me? I'm going to pause there for a second. Can you help me break down what it is that Phil is saying? Because you're much better on picking up what people are putting down.
Let's see. And it's right to some degree, but locally, what's the last locally? What was the last comment?
Part of the problem is that the population has exploded, but regulation and government move slowly, methodically, and that's right to some degree. But locally, developers have steamrolled the process. I lose it right there.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what he means by that, but it's yeah, the what I'm seeing. I'm not sure exactly what, but what I'm seeing the biggest disconnect is that some of these legislatures or some of these things or zoning are saying, hey, we want to do it to your area, like you know, not necessarily the area I'm living in, but we want this, could be potentially putting this in and when you say this may be a local issue, but this is across the nation. Like
That's what I'm
this is,
saying.
and we may, and what I think, Andy, is that like if we're on a scale of 1 to 10, 10's being we've already been through this, we've already had zoning regulations, we're done with it, like we're maxed out, we've done what we can. Like you may see areas in New York that's done that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you couldn't build nothing, like every inch of land is taken up. We're nowhere near that, so we may be like on scale number 3 on the scale of 1 to 10 about how we're utilizing land. But I can tell you every single neighborhood is going to say not in my backyard. Like those are not the people who need extra housing, is the people who have housing. So I don't know what they're going to do to single, because honestly, when I pick a house, I'm going to pick a single family neighborhood if I can afford it, because I don't want to be around, whatever else, the lower end house or whatever that's going to be. I grew up like that, right? So I grew up in a poor area, and I know if I'm in a poor area, they're going to steal my tires. Somebody, it's my neighbors. It's just what you deal with in a poor area. So, I mean, it. I don't know how I got off on that, but basically what I'm saying is density. Density is not always a great thing. I mean, I choose a yard that is less density. Like
Yeah.
if I want
Yeah.
to live somewhere, you have to have an acre or two or whatever it is in our neighborhood, and that's why we live here, is because that's what we like.
Yeah.
So I don't see, I don't know what to do, but I don't know if ruining neighborhoods after neighborhoods with crazy dense housing is the way to go either.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm going to read this next paragraph, and then we'll close it up, because this one is this pretty much covered everything when it was talking, as far as I'm concerned. And it says Gormley, and this guy was back up after a half an hour with his comrades, which I thought is telling, tracing its ideological roots to its anti-nest factions that emerged in 2024. Nashville's zoning preservationist movement, and ironically a big tent, NEST. I thought this was interesting, an acronym for Nashville's Essential Structures for Togetherness. I was like, yeah. At any rate, to continue, I thought NEST, somebody's got to do better than that. But this coalition seems to believe that any move towards zoning density anywhere existentially threatens single-family homes everywhere. One speaker derided upzoning as anti-American. Developers have destroyed Nashville, they argue, condemning associations with the real estate industry as public corruption. I've said a number of times that real estate is the whole purpose of the industry is to use land to its highest and best use. Period. That's what we're supposed to do, to extract the most value out of land. That's so. I mean, the corruption thing offended me a little bit. You can tell it kind of tracked me, but I'll leave this. It goes on a little bit, but here's the point, and you've made it beautifully in wrapping up. There's a sharp. You couldn't have put it more succinctly. The people that already have their housing situation figured out, we're good. The people that don't have the housing situation figured out is we need to change things, and we're coming to your backyard to change it. You know,
Yeah.
I agree, you know. So where do you move forward on that? For cities, this is good, feels so smart. For cities, it's a part of being in a big city. I've seen it in New York, Philly, New Jersey, and an expansion of housing from the dense part of the city. I remember when I was a kid, and I was in a church group, and we would go and play these different places around the country, you know, local to Ohio, and one of them was Philadelphia. And this is back a long time ago, but Philadelphia has always been pretty dense. The L trains, I was like, what's an L train? You know, it's elevated. They raise the trains above you so that you're driving underneath. You see them in movies all the time. But I couldn't imagine as a kid coming from Findlay, Ohio, which it's a lovely town, I suppose, but going from Findlay, Ohio, to where there was probably more people in 2 blocks, city blocks, in this Philadelphia neighborhood than there was in my entire city. There was 8,000 people in Findlay, Ohio. And we went to Philadelphia, and I bet there's easily 8,000 people living in their big blocks, you know, but you have to just like what Phil is saying, for cities, that's part of it. And
Right.
to take Nashville and to turn that into that, good or different, I just don't think you're going to defeat affordability. I just don't think you're going to get a consensus on that. I don't think there's no way. There's no way.
I think you know, if I would say, if I had to project it, you pin downtown Nashville, and it's going to happen closest to that pin and spread out.
Yeah.
You know, you know, because I ain't saying it doesn't need to happen, and I think that's what all big cities do. They have to take
Yeah.
advantage of some of that space. It's just like, but if you live down there, man, I'd hate to have a single family down there, and all of a sudden, everybody on your street now has a apartment in the back. You know.
Yeah, and that's what Philip is saying there too. And I just to finish it up too, I think that here's the financial reality of a situation like that. When an area overdevelops like that, there's going to be a number of people, they don't like it, they move. There's going to be a huge number of people that can't move, and that's who ends up populating that thing, and then it starts to to get tough from that point forward. I'm trying to, you know what I mean. But I mean, if you don't like it and if you've got the resources, out you go.
Yeah.
You're gone. So, God, what a great show. I loved it. Thank you for your riff on credit score. That's super important. Philip, so good to see you. It was great to see you yesterday. I love what you have to say. And you're one of my favorite people. And we can't wait to meet you out here. Listen, Rodney, you have any final thoughts?
No, great show today. Thanks for everything. Good to see everybody after Thanksgiving. So
Yeah. So the next, probably we'll do one show or maybe two. I don't know. But I can tell you on the next one, there's going to be Christmas music involved. So just kind of be ready for that. Thanks, everybody. See you later. Bye, Rodney.
see you.